Good morning, evening, or night, wherever you are. Welcome to WHAM today. Take a deep breath, clear your mind, and let's drift through the whispers of today's world, one quiet thought at a time. As we wrap up Sunday, 6th July, 2025, let's see what stories are unfolding around us. China faces domestic hurdles with a housing and demographic crisis reminiscent of Japan's experience. Hangzhou is becoming a major AI hub, fueled by state support and aiming to rival Silicon Valley. Premier Li Qiang touts China's transformation into a mega-sized consumption powerhouse focusing on domestic-driven growth. The environmental cost of China's rare earth dominance is evident in a vast, toxic sludge lake. Internationally, the Chinese embassy in Fiji has denied claims of a Pacific military base, dismissing them as false narratives and asserting its cooperation with Pacific Island nations is legitimate. French intelligence suggests Chinese embassies are actively hindering Rafale jet sales after the India-Pakistan conflict. Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council criticized China's opening of a new west-to-east connecting route above a sensitive waterway. Tensions between China and the European Union are escalating, with retaliatory import restrictions on medical devices following EU tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles and Beijing's duties on imported brandy. China barred European companies without local operations from major government medical device contracts worth over 45 million yuan, mirroring earlier EU restrictions. EU officials will discuss stability with China in July, acknowledging the importance of European exports, especially from Germany. Despite the appearance of unity, Russia, China, and North Korea did not aid Iran during its conflict with Israel, or when US forces bombed Iranian nuclear sites. At the BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro, Chinese Premier Li Qiang lauded China's growing ties with Brazil as at their best in history, and said they were working together to build a more just world while also agreeing with Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva to cooperate on bringing artificial intelligence to improve agriculture in both countries, reaffirming their commitment to multilateralism. Militarily, there are calls for the People's Liberation Army to create specialized counter-drone units to address the increasing use of drones in regional conflicts. The Dalai Lama, celebrating his 90th birthday, has pledged to continue defying China and announced his successor will be selected through reincarnation. India is re-evaluating its defense strategy and force modernization in response to the potential one-front reinforced challenge posed by China and Pakistan's collaboration. Mexico is seeing factories reduce their dependence on Asian suppliers due to US tariffs and government encouragement. Danfoss, for example, is assembling refrigeration and air conditioning units at its factory in Apodaca, Nuevo León. Vietnam saw clothing companies and manufacturers initially rise with optimism and then decline sharply on news that it would be the second nation to reach an initial tariff agreement with Washington, though details suggest the deal may target China. Tanzania maintains a strong military partnership with China in Africa, sourcing over 90% of its military arms from China. Brazil's President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva and Chinese Premier Li Qiang agreed to cooperate on bringing artificial intelligence to improve agriculture in both countries during the BRICS summit in Rio de Janeiro, reaffirming their commitment to multilateralism. Premier Li Qiang lauded China's growing ties with Brazil as at their best in history and said they were working together to build a more just world. In Gaza, intense fighting persists as Israeli airstrikes continue, resulting in numerous Palestinian casualties. Recent strikes reportedly killed at least 38 Palestinians, including 18 deaths in Al-Mawazi near Nasser Hospital. In Khan Yunis, other reports indicate 24 Palestinians died, with 10 killed while seeking aid. Another report detailed 82 deaths. Hospital officials report at least 33 Palestinians have died in Israeli airstrikes. Ceasefire negotiations are ongoing, with an Israeli negotiating team in Qatar, ahead of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's visit to the White House, where he is set to meet with President Trump. Trump expressed optimism about a potential ceasefire this week, possibly leading to hostage releases. However, the first session of indirect Hamas-Israel ceasefire talks concluded without an agreement, despite Netanyahu's statement that Israeli negotiators had clear instructions to achieve a ceasefire under conditions Israel has accepted. Intensified fighting and rising Palestinian casualties cast doubt on the possibility of a deal. The conflict also impacts narrative warfare, with some arguing Israel is losing ground due to smartphones, social media, and digital archives. Residents in the Dutch town of Nijmegen are symbolically reading aloud the names of Palestinian victims of the war. Tensions are high, as Hezbollah leader Naim Qassem has stated that his group will not surrender or lay down weapons in response to Israeli threats until Israel withdraws from all of southern Lebanon and ceases its airstrikes. Escalating the regional conflict, Israel has launched airstrikes targeting Houthi rebels in Yemen, who have retaliated with missiles, raising concerns about a wider regional conflict involving U.S. and Western forces. The renewed Houthi campaign has targeted shipping in the region. Israel attacked 3 mini ports and a power plant after a ship was attacked off the Red Sea port city of Hodeidah, forcing the crew to abandon it. The Houthi rebels claim their actions are in solidarity with Palestinians and have been launching missiles and drones at Israel since the Gaza war started. Within Iran, 2 Iranian guards were killed, clearing explosives after the 12-day Israel-Iran conflict, which was sparked by an Israeli bombing campaign on June 13. The June 23 airstrikes on Evin prison, including the hospital ward, have turned it from a hated symbol of oppression into a new rallying cry against Israel, even among the Iranian regime's domestic critics. Turning to South Korea, analysts suggest the recent missile exchanges during the Israel-Iran conflict served as a reminder of the vulnerability of even the most advanced defenses, which is a sobering consideration for South Korean military planners. Australia is focused on online safety and housing affordability. The government plans to remove over 1 million young teens from social media platforms by December, enforcing age restrictions of 16 and older. In New South Wales, concept designs for 577 affordable homes in Annandale have been introduced for essential workers on surplus government land. Concerns are also rising over gambling's social costs, especially in Victoria, where these costs have doubled to $14 billion since 2014. 15. The peak body for Australian doctors is urging restrictions on content promoting poker machines. The nation is addressing anti-Semitism, including an arson attack on a Melbourne synagogue, with a 34-year-old man charged. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is calling for stronger efforts to combat anti-Semitic acts. Additionally, a coroner's report suggests racism may have contributed to the shooting death of Kumanjayi Walker by Constable Zachary Rolfe in 2019, noting Rolfe's prior use of unnecessary force. The New Zealand Defence Force is not considering recruiting from across the Pacific, as talk continues of Australia doing so. Turning to the United States, former President Donald Trump intends to send letters to U.S. trade partners outlining new tariff rates. Trump has also criticized Elon Musk's plan to start and fund a new U.S. political party. Negotiations between the EU and the U.S. are in progress to secure trade deals and avert threatened tariffs on European imports. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent indicated the focus is on 15 to 18 agreements with key partners, while Trump mentioned potential import tax rates of up to 70% on others. Meanwhile, in China, Despite trade tensions, local government officials in the US generally welcome Chinese-invested projects, balancing economic benefits with geopolitical concerns. Dennis Simon is teaching a graduate course on China science and technology policy at Tsinghua University in Beijing. Neurobiologist Wang Jing left her position at the University of California, San Diego, to direct the Institute of Molecular Physiology at Shenzhen Bay Laboratory. Finally, Vietnam is seeing positive economic impacts from a trade deal with the United States. The Vietnam Stock Index has reached its highest level since April 2022, reflecting confidence in export stability. Iran had recruited Israeli citizens for espionage, court documents show. Initially, tasks were minor. Over time, they escalated. Israel uncovered the Iranian spy network. Following its conflict with Israel, Iran is deporting Afghan refugees. Those who do not comply face arrest. Thousands are returning to Afghanistan. Humanitarian groups warn of further destabilization in Afghanistan. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, made his first public appearance since the conflict with Israel. He attended a mourning ceremony. Iran demands accountability for Israel and the US. Iran described the conflict as a war of aggression that resulted in at least 935 deaths. Leaders of the BRICS group condemned attacks on Iran, Gaza, and Kashmir during their summit. The BRICS group aims to be a defender of multilateralism. Brazil recently hosted the 17th BRICS summit, grappling with internal divisions over condemning Israel's actions in Gaza and its alleged bombing of Iran. The summit saw attendance from leaders like India's Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, although Russia's Putin and China's Xi were absent. Trade tariffs imposed by the US under President Donald Trump were a key point of discussion, with BRICS positioning itself as a champion of multilateralism. Brazil sought to carefully manage its stance to avoid triggering Trump's threatened 100% tariffs, which he stated would be imposed if BRICS undermined the dollar or adopted anti-American policies, potentially incurring an additional 10% tariff. Notably, Brazil's President Lula used the summit platform to strongly denounce what he termed a genocide occurring in Gaza. Pakistan is taking a measured approach to recognizing the Afghan Taliban, opting to wait despite Russia's recent recognition. A pet lion escaped in Lahore, attacking a woman and her 2 children before authorities apprehended its owners. Tragedy struck Karachi as a building collapse claimed the lives of 27 people, including 9 women, 15 men, 2 children, and an infant. ED ambulance services transported the deceased to Civil Hospital, Karachi. Shifting focus to Malaysia, police are actively searching for a Pakistani man. He is suspected of sexually assaulting 3 boys and a teenager in the suburbs near Kuala Lumpur over the last 3 months. United Kingdom. With Emmanuel Macron's upcoming visit, Home Secretary Yvette Cooper praised France's fresh methods for reducing channel crossings, including a review of police methods to intercept boats at sea. French and British officials continue to engage in discussion. According to a recent UK poll, over 23 million Britons think they might be eligible for compensation due to mis-sold car loans, awaiting a Supreme Court decision on secret commission payments previously ruled illegal. Despite its successful lobbying for weaker targets, UK carmakers are positioned to achieve existing electric car sales targets, with electric vehicles representing 21.6% of all car sales in the first half of 2025. In other news, demonstrators in London were arrested on suspicion of terrorism for expressing support for Palestine Action, a UK group prescribed as a terror group, a decision that has drawn criticism from attorney Laura O.B. Further, a UK agency reported that the crew of a cargo ship abandoned their vessel in the Red Sea following an attack with drones and rocket-propelled grenades, causing the ship to take on water. Ukraine. Kiev governments have faced sustained pressure to adopt policies detrimental to Ukrainian interests, thereby infringing upon Ukraine's sovereignty. Pakistan's political landscape saw Imran Khan's party, Sharp View, rebuking Bilawal's statements concerning extradition to India, arguing they undermine Pakistan's stance on national security. India recently observed the Dalai Lama's 90th birthday, marked by celebrations in a northern town involving followers, cultural displays, and greetings from international figures. The government in exile, created by the Dalai Lama to protect Tibetan culture, is facing a crucial juncture as it prepares for his succession. Meanwhile, Prada's release of a sandal drawing inspiration from the Indian Kolhapuri chapel has stirred controversy, with critics pointing to cultural appropriation due to the brand's omission of the shoe's origins. In the bustling streets of Bangkok, Thailand, a man hailing from India was seen selling counterfeit Rolex watches. Japan faces a dual challenge of natural disasters and economic shifts. Earthquakes are prompting evacuations from remote islands to Kyushu. A severe heat wave has triggered heatstroke alerts across 19 prefectures. Economically, tea farms are struggling to meet global matcha demand, facing declining plantations and potential U.S. tariffs. Turning to the Philippines, Japan intends to export 6 Abukuma-class destroyer escorts to bolster its defense capabilities against China. Domestically in Japan, a Lockita hotel luggage delivery service is expanding nationwide after a successful launch in Osaka. Dr. Chathan is okay. As the country anticipates an upper house election, political parties are outlining ambitious growth targets. Guidance is being issued to encourage responsible dog ownership. The United States experienced political ripples as former President Donald Trump derided Elon Musk's foray into forming a new political party. Trump labeled the initiative ridiculous, responding to Musk's stated aim of disrupting what he perceives as a one-party system in the U.S. Trump also voiced optimism regarding a potential hostage and ceasefire agreement in Gaza within the week. He further indicated the United States' active involvement in diverse initiatives with Israel, including the possibility of a permanent deal with Iran. The United States recently imposed a 20% import tax on all products manufactured in the European Union, a move initiated by Donald Trump that is rooted in trade imbalance concerns. This decision has strained the existing trade relationship between the two economic powerhouses. Europe finds itself at a critical juncture, actively debating its future defense strategy. The central question revolves around whether to invest in building an independent military industry or to continue relying on the United States for defense support. This discussion occurs amidst a backdrop of increased arms spending across the continent. Russia announced the capture of Pidiban in the Donetsk region and Sobolivka in the Kharkiv region on Sunday, marking the 1.229th day of its war in Ukraine. Simultaneously, Russia and Iran were described as awkward guests relegated to the periphery within the BRICS economic group. The BRICS nations, despite having only 6 of 10 leaders present at a summit in Brazil, are challenging the US-led global order. Russia also engaged in drone warfare with Ukraine, launching hundreds of drones that disrupted Russian air travel. Meanwhile, in Ukraine, drone warfare continued as hundreds of drones disrupted Russian air travel. Ukraine's ongoing conflict with Russia persists with no immediate resolution in sight. Turning our attention to Brazil, the BRICS economic group held a summit with only 6 of 10 leaders present. Despite the absence of key figures, the BRICS nations aimed to challenge the US-led global order. The summit highlighted the complex dynamics within the group, particularly regarding Russia and Iran's roles. In Iran, the nation, along with Russia, is viewed as an awkward guest on the periphery within the BRICS economic group as the BRICS nations challenge the US-led global order. Kenya is seeing growing concern and grief as the family of missing police officer Benedict Correa awaits definitive news after an ambush in Haiti this past March. Though Haitian media has reported his death, Kenyan authorities are still officially searching. Meanwhile, in Kakoth village, the funeral of Albert Ojwang, who died in police custody, sparked protests. Demonstrators urged Kenyan youth to take action in response to Ojwang's death. Nigeria is grappling with escalating violence as Boko Haram intensifies attacks in Borno state. The militant group has been actively targeting military outposts and civilian areas. 9 people were killed and 4 injured in a recent Boko Haram raid, underscoring the deteriorating security situation. The group is also planting bombs along roads, further destabilizing the region. In the Red Sea, a Liberian-flagged, Greek-owned vessel came under attack. The United Kingdom Maritime Trade Operations Centre confirmed the incident. The onboard armed security team engaged the attackers. The situation was described as ongoing, raising concerns about maritime security in the region. The global butter market watches nervously as Europe and New Zealand, who together account for about 70% of butter exports, face historically low stockpile projections as they head into 2025. This could mean big price changes and problems with getting butter where it needs to go. Transitioning to New Zealand, Dr. Sean Sweeney, previously the chief executive of City Rail Link, CRL, is now working on the new Dublin Metrolink project. Sweeney expressed a preference to have remained in New Zealand, hinting at a possible talent drain from the country's infrastructure projects. China's relationship with Singapore was highlighted by Prime Minister Lawrence Wong's visit, emphasizing free trade and multilateralism. Simultaneously, China's anti-dumping duties on European brandy unexpectedly benefited French cognac producers, drawing a favorable reaction from Paris. Afghanistan's Taliban government received official recognition from Russia, potentially strengthening the Taliban's international standing and increasing pressure on Western countries. Chile is now the site of significant paleontological discovery. The fossil of a pregnant ichthyosaur, dubbed Fiona, was discovered preserved under a glacier. Estonia recently hosted over 21,000 choir singers at the Song Festival grounds in Tallinn in a large-scale celebration of Estonian culture. Japan's Emperor Naruhito and Empress Masako traveled to Mongolia for a week-long visit to honor Japanese prisoners of World War II. Tonga is working to restore data after suffering a cyber breach. And that's a wrap for today's news, because even headlines need a nap. Stay curious, stay kind, and let the noise fade as you find your quiet. Take care, stay awesome, and I'll see you next time on WHAM Today.